Welcome to another episode of Captain Hunter's Podcast, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure that whatever platform you're listening to this episode on, whether it's on Google Play, iTunes, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean, whatever platform you're listening to this episode on, please make sure that hit that subscribe button. Subscribe, rate, and share. Subscribe to the episode. Rate the episode. Make sure you give it that 5-star rating. Share the episode, whether you share it on your Facebook page, on your Twitter page, or if you just send it as an email to a friend who may be interested in whatever topic that we're talking about. So please make sure that you do that. If you're giving it less than 5 stars as far as the rating, make sure that you send me an email about how I can make the show better. I'm looking for feedback and input. We got about almost 25 episodes up now. Just trying to make everything better now. So make sure that you are subscribing, that you're rating the show. It's very important in order for me to get higher up in the analytics and everything like that. We want people to be able to find the episode. I was out in Seattle not too long ago. I landed at the airport, talked to a police officer out there, told him about the show. So he started looking me up on iTunes. He couldn't find the show. It took him a long time to find the show. And the more that ratings that I get that are preferable, then the analytic and the algorithms will make sure that my show is easier to find. So please make sure that you rate the show highly, that you subscribe to the show, and that you are sharing the show. So please make sure that you do that. What's so special about today's episode? Well, today's episode is going to feature what activism should actually look like. Instead of simply taking everything for granted, instead of sitting back and just saying what this person should do, what that person should do, what this leadership over there should do, what this political party or what this political leadership should do. Our guest for today took the bulls by the horn and jumped into the political arena. So he's a community activist who then said, you know what, if I have a problem with how the city is being run, if I have a problem with my particular district is being run, I'm going to jump into the arena. Now, this episode is not about me necessarily advocating for his mayorship, but I just wanted to give him a platform in order for him to put his message out there, and because I think that that's important. I do not live in his district, so I cannot vote for him. I do live in the City of Waterbury, but once again, this is not me necessarily giving him the thumbs up. However, I do think that it's important to get his message out there, and you as the listener, you as residential Waterburyan can decide if you want to vote for him. But to any community activists out there in any other city, I want you to listen to how he answers these questions and decide for yourself if the methods that he's taken and the things that he's doing, that you can take those back to your community and make your community a better place. And so we can answer that big question of how we bring the police and the community to work together as one. So that's the reason for today's episode. So sit back and relax and or go for that nice walk and just listen to our guest, Vernon Matthews Jr. Thank you so much to him for being on the show. And make sure that you go to One Voice, One Community Facebook page and One Community Credit Union on the Facebook page. Check those pages out. Make sure you like those pages and make sure that you are becoming a part of the solution and not part of the problem when it comes to helping to bridge the gap and the divide between the police and the public. And one more time, technology got us again. However, we were able to fix the problem. So there's about a minute where there's a cell phone breaking up, but we got the problem solved. So just bear with us for that very short period of time. Without further ado, here's the interview with Vernon Matthews Jr. I'd like to welcome my special guest. He is the Alderman for the 2nd District of City of Waterbury, currently running for the mayor of the City of Waterbury on the Independent Party ticket. He has been educated in the Waterbury parochial schools. He went to St. Mary's and Sacred Heart High School, class of 1991. He attended Bethune-Cookman College, worked for the state of Connecticut for the past 20 years. He's written 4 different novels. The most successful one is My Eyes Closed, A Story of Lost Love. He's been married for 22 years, father of 2 children, former Parks and Finance Commissioner for the City of Waterbury, a longtime community activist working to make the city a better place, one community at a time, and he's involved with the One Voice, One Community movement. I'd like to welcome my special guest, Vernon Matthews Jr. Welcome to the show.
How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'd like to give you a chance to just kind of cover any ground that I didn't cover and what you have coming up. I know you're running for the mayor for the City of Waterbury. What else do you have going on?
Well, I'm also running for my current seat that I'm in for the Board of Alderman for the 2nd District, and just doing my community activist stuff that I've been doing for many, many, many years. And one of my partners and myself are still in the process of opening up. There's a minority-owned unit that they're in the process of doing.
Okay, it's awesome. I did not know that was a project underway. So a minority-owned credit union. Okay, very nice. Yes. So what brought that? Go ahead.
And the fact that the literacy program just to teach minorities the importance of credit and the way of going about getting credit. That has been lost over the years. Lead Action and a couple other places that basically were minority friends as far as getting loans and financial stability, literacy programs and stuff, because we were noticing that a lot of our people are starting to use the check cashing places or either going to a Walmart from the feds and also from the state banking commission paperwork. And there's everything that you have to go through to make sure that what you're doing is legal, that we're doing what is right for the community, and also they act as big brother to help out with stuff that we may not know about that may help us in the long run.
Like I said, I think that is absolutely awesome. Someone who is actually stepping up and actually doing something for the community instead of just talking about it. Kudos to you. Mm-hmm. Now, I also understand that that school systems, maybe you know about this, some of the school systems are now teaching some type of financial literacy in their college prep and business classes.
Yes, on the higher level they are, but they have gone away from it with the lower level. So, like when I was in school, we would have people from the JCs or whatever come in, and they would teach us, about how having a savings account, how to go about doing a checking account, different things like that. Now we don't. More and more of it's going away, or they're relying on the parents to teach the children how to do it, and there's a missed generation of knowing how to do those things because they weren't taught it. So now the parent has to go out and find out how to do it before they can teach it. So what we want to do, not only that, we also have in the works doing a women's investment club to teach women how to invest in different things, whether it be stock, buying homes, or even if they wanted to open up their own business, how to run that business and make it a success. Whereas instead of starting something and then it fails within 4 to 6 months because there's no plan of action how to go about doing everything.
Now, are these programs, particularly with the women, are they up and running? And if so, where can they be reached at and how can people get that information?
The Women's Investment Club, they're supposed to start sometime in October. I'm not sure the exact time because Kevin is the one that's in charge of that. But basically, it's open to anyone that wants to learn how to invest and also how to make their money go, what they have right now, make their money stretch a little bit longer than what it is.
Very nice. Now, is this part of this one voice, one community? Is that part of that? You said the credit union is.
The credit union is one community, but the one voice, one community is something that I came up with when I ran unsuccessfully against Larry Butler, but it was to show people that in order for you to have a voice, you need someone that's going to stick up for the entire community. And when I was saying a community, I meant the city in general, not just a certain section of town. You want somebody that's out there that's willing to speak what you may be scared to say or scared to bring up an issue.
Now, how is that project coming along? Are a lot of people receptive to it, or
a lot of people are receptive. I see the hashtag quite often, and I'm like, well, it was just something that I thought of. I didn't think it would catch on, but it definitely has catched on over the years. We actually have a One Voice, One Community group on Facebook, and people can post anything. Injustice stuff that they see within police department or injustice that they see housing, they can post there. They can say whatever they want. You're not being judged by what you post. I do try to keep it more on the lines of politically correct, not having people going on a rant saying racial different types of stuff or whatever, but it's open to anyone.
Very nice. Hopefully that kind of nonsense is not too often with the crazy racial or crazy nonsense.
Well, it's not that often. You have a few people that will come up there and say stuff, and what I try to do with people, I let them know, don't like what was written, don't engage in it because it dies as soon as that person writes it there or whatever. Let them say what they wanted to say on their soapbox and then just don't respond to it. But when you respond, then you just keep it going, and then next thing you know, you may have something that you literally would have to pull the whole post down because the post wasn't meant for that. It was meant to be in lighting, and someone took it totally north of where it was supposed to be at.
Very nice. So you are a community activist currently running for the mayor for the city of Waterbury and your seat. Give us your overall vision for, number one, your community, your particular district, and then for the city of Waterbury in the whole.
Okay, so within my district, I would love to see more policing. I also love to see more of the blight control officers as well as the attendees out cleaning up certain areas and just hold a lot of these out-of-town or absentee landlords accountable for what their property looks like, and to let it be known that, we are a community. We love our city just as much as someone in the East End, someone in the West End, or someone in the South End. It's just for some reason, when you hear the North End, there's like this black cloud that comes up and people think, well, you're in the North End. So it's always something negative when there's a lot of positive things that go on in the North End in certain sections. You have Crownbrook that has been trying to revitalize themselves. You have the Wow area that's been trying to revitalize themselves. So there's a lot of areas that at one time were considered bad, but there's people that are there that are trying to make it a better place. So we need to work as a community and just keep things moving along and show people that, you know what, for one bad apple, there's 25 that are out there that are willing to do the distance and make this area a lot better than what it is.
Yes, I definitely see that. And I give a lot of credit to those members of those particular communities that you mentioned, which are trying to clean up their areas. One of the biggest frustrations that I've always had are the people who either don't care about the area or those who come in a transit type of basis and just kind of don't care about the area. I, as you know, I was a former police officer, so I can remember one night, if you can remember when the precincts were open, we had 3 different precincts around the city.
Yes.
Do you remember that? Yeah. I was at the precinct on North Main Street. Now there was right next door to the precinct was a Chinese restaurant. And so someone had gone in there one night. He brought some food and he's standing outside eating it. Now I'm outside as well, even though I was assigned to the precinct. I'm outside because at this particular time, that particular area, especially during the midnight shift, there were a lot of bars that we had to break up fights and just make sure people kept moving, things like that. So this guy finishes his food and just throws the stuff on the ground. And now, number one, he throws it on the ground. There was a trash bin not too far away. So he throws it right on the ground. Number one, in front of a police officer, right? I was in full uniform. And number two, he just does it completely not caring about the community in which he either lived or that he was visiting. I don't know which one it was.
Exactly.
Talk to us about how we can change the minds of people, whether they come to certain segments of the city, or whether they live there, about not throwing trash in the ground and just cleaning up the community. Talk to us about how we change that mindset.
One thing is we have an ordinance now that has been on the books for a little while dealing with litter. And basically that falls under the blight officers or community officers that go out and look to see certain areas where trash is overgrown at or whatever. And there's also the new ordinance that it's an old ordinance, but we added more to it with the trash bins being left out and being brought back the same day that trash goes out or whatever. For example, you have someone that's like what you just said about the Chinese food or whatever. If you have a bin that's right there and you have no respect to walk toward that bin, the officer, regardless if it was you or whoever else, has every right to write an infraction for that, because he's showing, 1, I have no respect for your uniform, 2, I have no respect for your community, and 3, has no respect for himself, because that just means that he wants to live in filth. Nobody wants to live in filth. We want to be able to have our areas, regardless of where you are, to be pristine. You want someone to come to that area and say, hey, I can go there and, I don't see anything on the ground or whatever. And I always use the analogy of going down south and being in a Walmart parking lot down there compared to here. Up here, you'll see cigarette butts, everything else all around the parking lot. You go down there and you literally if you dropped your soda on the ground, you could pick your soda back up and start drinking it. That's how clean they keep their areas. So why can't we do the exact same thing here, or people just say enough is enough, and this is what I want for my community.
Absolutely. So, just by the way, I did make the guy pick up the trash. I didn't just leave it there. So we had
I figured that.
Yeah, no, we had a nice conversation, but just the mindset of what this, why he would do that. Yeah, like I said, number one, just to throw it on the ground while there's trash available. Number two, right in front of the police officers. Just a complete lack of respect. You gave us your vision for your second district. Now, how about the city of Waterbury as a whole?
All right. City of Waterbury, quality of life. And when I say quality of life, we've had several different news articles within the past few weeks talking about different things for quality of life. One being the sewage treatment center down in the south end, and the odor that it's getting stronger and is being smelt in areas that it was never smelt before. That's something that we have to work on. We have to work on our opiate problem that we have, and it's not just based off of one particular race or one particular creed. We're seeing this epidemic left and right. Our current administration, as far as the police department, they're doing a great job, but I also believe that we do need more policing to stop the problem in certain areas where we're seeing people overdosing or drug paraphernalia being dashed in areas where we have young children or young adults that go and hang out, and you have a chance of getting stabbed by a dirty needle, or a kid finding a bag not knowing what it is, thinking it's candy, and they ingest it, and now we're trying to figure out what did this kid have, not knowing that it was something that was just left around. Lowering our taxes, because we're number 2 in the state. We're 60.21, and we need to lower our tax and lower the mill rate so that we can start bringing more businesses in, and to also improve our image that we're known as. And I hate hearing people say, "Oh, I'm from the dirty water." No, you're not. You're from the brass capital of the world. Mm-hmm. You're from the city of Waterbury. You stop using a derogatory name for a city, because as long as you keep using the word dirty water or something derogatory about the city, now that's why everybody thinks that the city of Waterbury is that way. I can give examples of being on the air on Sirius XM talking to Jeff Fox, or being at WBLS talking to different on-air personalities, and I talk about Waterbury like it's Brooklyn, New York, or it's Washington, D.C., and then they go and look up and they'll start asking me stats. Well, why is this and why is that? And I'm like, I don't see that. This is my hometown. I love my hometown. You can't, for the negative stuff that's there's a lot of great things that could be and even be better. So, those are the things we have to work on. We have to get that quality of life back from where we are right now.
Very good. Yeah, I like that, getting the quality of life back. And thank you for pushing back for us Waterburyans who, when you get challenged. Certainly, thank you for doing that.
Oh, I do that all the time. In fact, out of all 6 books that I've written that have been published, I talk about Waterbury like you would think Waterbury was, Los Angeles, California, or something. That's how much I love the city,
Yeah.
And I also shout out different neighborhoods and different things like that, because that's just how I remember the city and how I would love to see the city be again.
You certainly have an uphill battle, particularly in the minds of people who have been, I want to say, jaded by that image, right? The dirty water. So people have taken it, maybe even affectionately. Whether that's good or not is up for debate. I mean, I don't particularly like when people take those type of negative words, like the N-word, and try to make it some type of positive, right? So I don't think that there's anything positive about that. There's nothing positive about that.
The one thing, and I was going to bring that up, but I'm glad you brought it up, the N-word, we use it like a term of endearment now. But as soon as somebody that's not of our culture says it, now you want to punch them in the face or do something to them. It's like, you can't use something and think it's cool and then get ticked off when somebody else uses it.
Right.
So we have to really think of our mindset and what we're trying to portray ourselves as more so than, this dirty water. And it ticks me off when I hear, on-air personalities of our stations in our area. Oh yeah, there's so-and-so from the dirty water. I'm like, please stop. And that's one of the reasons I've actually stopped listening to commercial radio, because of derogatory things. I can't see that. You want an image that you want to portray your town as being better, but you are allowing someone to use a derogatory statement towards everything that is associated with your city.
It's kind of a mental kind of sickness, I think.
Yeah, it is.
Did you see Dave Chappelle's latest Netflix special?
No, I did not see it, but from everybody has been talking about it on Facebook and everything. Just like I didn't watch last night's episode of Power, people have been talking about it, and I'm like, I have to watch these things just to see what's going on. But from what I heard, this is like some of Chappelle's best work.
Well, yes, I really enjoyed his last two specials, but this one was really good as well. And just continuing with the theme that we're talking about with the N-word, you can certainly watch it, and he can certainly tell the story way better than I can. So he's having a conversation with one of, I think the managers of Netflix or someone like that. So he's talking to someone, and they're telling him not to use the term fag. Right, and when he's referring to gay people, and he's like, okay, well, that's fine, I won't use that word. But then he starts walking out the office, and he says, well, wait a minute, why can't I use this word? And the woman, I think it's a woman, he says to him, well, because you're not gay, right? It's not a term of endearment to you. You're not gay. He says, well, but you don't have a problem with me using the N-word. And she said, again, and he's like, well, you're not gay, but then he says, well, I'm not a nigger either. So we have to really, I think that we as a community, we can get more to the community activism type of thing. And this is the overall theme that I want to talk about, is how do we get ourselves together? If we want other people to respect us, right? The gay community wants to be respected, so you can't use that term. Waterburyans like you and I want to be respected, so we don't want them to downgrade us as far as the City of Waterbury calling us the dirty water. I agree with both of those. And so this N-word is a problem, and our musicians use it. Our comedians use it. How do we stop this? I mean, is it even possible? Is it too far gone now? We just got to just kind of swallow it and just take it.
Well, I go back to, we're old heads, so I go back to Richard Pryor live on Sunset Strip after he had his epiphany going to Africa, and he was shocked to see the lions and the tigers and everything, but he was around black folks. And how he tells the joke is like, the whole time I was there, nobody called me nigga. And he's like, while I was there, he's like, you know what? I'm never using that word ever again. And after that particular Live on Sunset Strip came out like 81, 82, before he burned himself, he did not use that word ever again in any of his stand-up, any of his movies. He never used it. So it's a mindset. So if we tell ourselves that, if we want our community to be a better place, and we don't want to use the derogatory name of dirty water or Waterbury, the only thing they've ever elected is corrupt individuals or whatever, you stop saying that, you stop acting that way, you stop showing it that way. Now people are starting to believe, it's like, that's not Waterbury's image. This is something that someone told us was Waterbury's image, but they changed it. And the only thing it's just like flipping a switch in your house. You turn your light on, you're going to have lights. You turn your light off, the lights are going to be off.
Right.
So it's all in how you flip the switch and show people how you want things to be done and how you want to lead. Because it takes a leader to change people.
I completely agree. It all comes down to leadership. And you're right. We have to exemplify the type of behavior that we want. So we got this voting stuff coming up. Talk to me about how we can get people to vote. People showed up a lot for Obama. Nobody came out when he wasn't running anymore. Look what we got. In the midterm elections, everybody turned around and they came out to vote again, highest percentages in years, if not ever. Yep. This is a time for the city of Waterbury to vote, everything that you're running for. How do we get people to be encouraged? And not only in the big time elections when we're voting for senators or presidents, but in the smaller alderman districts, how do we get people to come out and to be just as interested, just as fiery?
Well, I look at it this way. You go by someone's works. And if I can be a carny and sit out and constantly post pictures or say what I've done, or let somebody else say what I did. And I prefer for somebody to say what I did, than for me to be my own person out there stating, hey, I did this for this person, I did this for this community, I did this for that community. Because remember, our beloved Johanna Hayes, they did not want her. And you saw what she did. She primaried, she knocked the socks off. Then she went to November and had the biggest turnout ever far as someone in Waterbury. Her numbers were higher than any of the mayors that has ever been elected.
Wow.
She was close to 15,000 votes, and we averaged for a mayoral race with all three major parties and whatever write-ins or whatever, it averages about 20,000 people that get out and vote. She had 14,000 people, almost 15, to vote for her, one person alone. So that speaks volume, and it also speaks to where people are. And, they believed in what this woman was speaking about. They believed in her. It wasn't about what they call this political machine. It was someone that was genuine, that got out there and spoke their mind. And that's me in a nutshell. It's like, I hear what people are saying. That's one of the reasons why I started to get on the bus Wednesday, was to listen to people from the East End, people from the South End, or just the little small areas within your neighborhoods that the buses do different routes. And you would hear of a older man letting his wife drive the car to work, and he would run around and do whatever business has to be done on the bus. Or the former state employee that's retired, and he takes the bus to save money so he doesn't have to spend money on gas just running around the City of Waterbury. But it takes him 2 hours to get from Walmart to back over to his condo on Scott Road, when he can drive his car there and be done. But he'd rather do that to save money. So those are the things that I paid attention to and I listened to, and I was like, okay, these are the people that want change. These are the folks that want to see a difference. They want to be able to go out and vote and feel confident in that their vote is making a difference, not just, it's the same thing, it's the same thing, it's the same thing, because that's what I've heard. You can't do this, you cannot beat this, you cannot do that, or whatever. And I love when people tell me I can't do anything, because I'm a Leo. You can't tell a Leo what they can't do, because they're going to show you that I can do this and I'll do it 5 times better.
So you've run into a lot of apathy when people saying, yeah, I can imagine.
It's now it's just the fact of showing people that, I am a good choice, that I do believe in the city, I do believe in the people of Waterbury, regardless of your color, your race, and your creed, religion, whatever. It's about unifying and making us one voice, one community.
Many communities throughout the country are dealing with negative interactions between law enforcement and their communities.
Yes.
I think that is, and I'm bragging a lot about the City of Waterbury, obviously in our police department, but what can we do better? Now, we don't have any of the problems, any of the consent decrees that Baltimore or Cleveland, and I'm not trying to pick on any city, but there's a lot of problems in a lot of different places. But what can our police department do better? I know you wanted more policing and patrolling.
I would love to see more policing, more patrolling. I would also love to bring back, and I'm quite sure when you went on 20 some odd years ago, they still had the Cop Buddy program, which was having the officers live in certain areas, and they were able to live in a house for 15 years, and then after 15 years, their loan would be forgiven or something. I would love to see those officers, especially the young guys, move into not crime-ridden areas, but somewhere where crime could be deterred by just for the simple fact of having an officer living there, and to actually interact with the children in the area to let them know that, hey, the image that you see on TV or the image that is portrayed by news, these are not officers, because I have several officers that I'm friends with, and then there were several officers growing up that if there was a problem, if I couldn't sit down and talk to my parents or talk to my dad, I could go and talk to the officer, because I knew the officer knew my dad, and eventually it would get back. But I could sit down and have a conversation and knew that these guys were peace officers, not police officers. They were there to protect the whole community. And what they're trying to show now, as far as policing, they want to show you guys as combat. They want to show you as this, show you as that, or whatever. And I've never heard, really, not even in Connecticut in general, heard of any officers that were so rogue that would make their city or their town embarrassed by them being on the force. And if it did happen, it was those officers were taking off the force way before anything crazy could happen. So they were somebody else's problem, or they just lost their certification, and we didn't have that problem anymore.
So what would you say to any community activists in other cities about how to engage with their police department? I think we do a good job once again, but what would you say to another community activist?
I would tell them, instead of the rah-rah or the anger, find out. Because remember, these guys are human beings just like we are. And when you have a problem, or you've had a problem all day, and you're confined to a vehicle, and you don't have a way for your outlet, what was the problem that led to that? Why was the officer that way? Or why was the person in the community that way towards the officer that led to whatever being escalated to an arrest or a possible they claim an assault or whatever? What was going on in that officer's mind? What can he do, or what can we do as a community to debrief or do community ride-alongs to find out what's really going on? Because you can find somebody that's in, say, like a Greenwich, cop pulls a car over maybe 4 or 5 times a month, or someone that's in, like you said, a West Baltimore, that's constantly thinking the whole time he gets in that car, to the time he goes off for his break, to the time he leaves, if he gets mandated to work another shift, when he leaves, what was going through his head the whole time that he was in that vehicle, or what was going through her head the whole time she was in that vehicle?
That's a good point.
I'm going to a shooting. Am I going to get shot?
Right.
What can I do to protect this person that was already shot, and where's the shots fired? Philadelphia, 3 weeks ago, perfect example. They go to serve a warrant, not knowing all the intel that was going on in that house. I'm quite sure if they knew everything that was going on, the tactic would have been totally different, and it probably would have ended in a peaceful way instead of officers being shot.
Right.
Because they would have known that there's artillery in that house, there's this, there's that, or whatever. So a lot of times we have to, and it was a community person that told them, hey, this guy's doing this in the house. But they didn't tell them everything else that was in that house. So if they knew what was going on, the attack would have been more of a sleep-awake type thing. Go when he's asleep so he can't get to stuff. You're going midday where everything is there, and he knows where everything is at. You guys don't know where things are.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Speaking of Philadelphia, I tell the story. Anyone who's listened to the previous episodes has heard this story. I was on vacation and ran across a guy. He ended up being a pastor from the city of Philadelphia. And so he was a pastor in Philadelphia. Of course, I tell him what I do. And I tell him I was a lieutenant at the time. And so he begins to tell me that he missed the days and times when the officers were outside of their police vehicles and they were actually walking the beat and interacting with the public. A lot of what you've been suggesting. So I think that there's a lot of merit from that. This was a pastor, he's a black pastor from Philadelphia who wanted the same thing. So this enmity that people often have or think that there's often going on between black people and the police is not true and accurate. A lot of black people do want the police in their communities, in their neighborhoods, and to help protect and to help bring about the law and order.
As a need that's there and has been there. We grew up where we saw Jimmy Wyrick or Cicero Booker Jr., James Matthews, all these guys walking around Waterbury. and they would get out the vehicle, stand there and talk to you, find out what's going on, what are you doing, why are you out here at this time of the day, or whatever. Mr. Kavanaugh, or be down at Pathmark, why are you down here at this time? I need to call your dad. I'm in here buying something for my parents. That's why I'm in Pathmark at 12:01 at night. I'm not out here hanging around to do whatever, but they knew who you were. They knew who your families were. So it kept you accountable for what you were doing, and you didn't want to mess your name up for them to be down there saying, well, so-and-so was down here because he was doing this or he was doing that. So to have the community policing and not to have just 6 officers, to actually bring it back up to at least having 14 community officers, so we have a rotation. And then just in general, just bringing more policing back and showing people that it's not about, martial law. It's about showing that we want to have people out there to feel safe and feel protected, you know?
If we had that type of community interaction between the police officers, as you said, as we grew up and we saw the police officers on the beat, then maybe that guy who threw down those chickens in front of me would not have done it, because he would have had some type of respect for the badge. He would have known, like you said, this police officer may call my mother. Now, I didn't know the guy, exactly. but that fear, that mindset is gone. And so I think that's one way to bring it back.
Exactly.
We'll finish up now, but I just kind of want to talk about your romantic side. So you got a couple of books, My Eyes Closed, and Confessions of a Married Man, and Our Love, The Completion of Love. Just talk to us about these books. What's your inspiration for these romantic novels that you got going on?
The actual first story or first novel, you would say, or screenplay, my wife was working on one of her degrees, and I went with her to school one time, and I was trying to figure out what to do while she had a long class, and she was actually in class for 4 hours. She said, "Why don't you write something?" And I was like, "Okay, what can I write?" And the actual first screenplay is called From the Berry to the Peak, and it was based off of 2 brothers that lived in Waterbury that moved to Chesapeake, Virginia. One was teaching at Hampton, and the other one was a funeral director. And the love ran from there. I just constantly wrote about different characters and tried to find out how to make stories go, and just a love. I found out it was a love that I like to do as a pastime.
Absolutely. Awesome. I think it's good that people have that kind of pastime and can't just eat, sleep, and work. You got to have something that's going to pass the time as well.
Exactly.
I'll give you the last word here. I know that you're working on, which once again I think is awesome, a credit union. You're working on the women, helping them with their investments. What else do you have going on, and what can we look forward to as far as your aldermanship and voting, and what else do you have going on?
I just want people to get out there, research, see what I've done as an alderman, and also as far as what I've done in the community, and just if they feel that they really want to see change in Waterbury and want to see, someone that's going to get out there and fight and be an advocate for them, just give me a chance. That's all I can say. Just give me a chance. Like you said, in the midterm elections back in 2018, the numbers were out of this world because of people were like, you know what, we really need to make a difference, and they voted in a lot of black women for the first time, and also they were able to do a lot of different things within minority areas where things have changed. So let's keep the ball rolling and see where we can go with it.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your time, Vernon Matthews Jr. Good luck in the elections, and wish you well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much to Vernon Matthews Jr. for being on the podcast. No matter who you decide to vote for in this coming election, whether it's this year or next year, make sure that you are part of the process and that you are stepping up to vote. Make sure you get registered to vote, and make sure you get out there and actually cast that vote. That's the most important thing. Let your voice be known and let your voice be heard. Please make sure that you rate this episode, subscribe, and share. Please make sure that you visit on my Twitter account, CPTL Hunter. That's Captain L Hunter. Instagram, CPTL Hunter. Facebook, LMH Police Training and Consulting. YouTube, Captain L Hunter. And also, just as a final note, we're going to be starting something new. I'm going to be handing out show notes. So I just acquired a Patreon page. You can go to Captain Hunter's Podcast, and you can subscribe there. Go to the Patreon page and subscribe. And as a member of the subscription for only $5 a month, you will be able to support the program. So what is supporting the program? What do you get out of it for $5? Well, for $5, we understand that's not a lot of money. So you can, in a week's time, you spend way more than that on a cup of coffee. But the reason I want you to do this is because it takes a little bit of effort for me to do the things that I'm doing. If you like the content that I'm putting out, the ability to have different speakers on, then that takes a little bit of financial effort on my part. So what is the financial effort on my part? So, if they have a book, then I like to try to read the book. So obviously I have to buy the book and download the book. Sometimes they have specialized articles which are only available on academic presses. So you have to either pay for the press, pay for access to that academic literature that they may have out there. So this is what is important. Also, I'd like to be able to upgrade the equipment and get some more podcast guests on here. And I like to have 2 or 3 on at a time eventually going forward. All this takes money to get newer equipment, better equipment, to be able to access their information, to read the books and things like that. So if you want the content to grow, if you're learning something, please consider subscribing to the Patreon page. As a member of the Patreon page, you will also get access to show notes. Instead of having to write down every article that I come across or every book that we read off, it'll be in the show notes. You also get a bio. If I'm interviewing someone, I will include a picture of them and links to where their work is at and things like that. So I'm also looking to add on to the Patreon page and add on to different offers at a later time. But this is just something that's going on now. So number one, as becoming a subscriber and a member of the Patreon page, you will be able to help me to keep current with the academic research that I need to do in order to keep this podcast going. You will also, on your end, you will get access to the show notes and different ideas and topics that we're going to be discussing, and it's only going to grow from there. So just consider it being a part of that. I thank you so much for tuning in to Captain Hunter's Podcast. We got a lot of good episodes coming up, a lot of good interviews coming up, a lot of good PhDs that are coming up. I'm looking to keep giving you, the listeners, some quality information and quality guests. The show is growing. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, even tell your enemies, right? So tell everyone that you know about what we got going on over here at Captain Hunter's Podcast. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Until next time, make sure you stay tuned, rate, subscribe, and share. Go to my Patreon page, Captain Hunter's Podcast. Please become a subscriber and a supporter. And that's it for now. Take care. Bye.